Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Tourism Skill Shop, brought to you by State of Washington Tourism, SWT. My name is Matthew Ozuna, and I am the Destination Development Manager here at SWT. And it is my pleasure to talk to you today on this Skill Shop about Facebook and Instagram paid advertising. You know me and the series pretty well, but go ahead and utilize the chat and get to know each other. Let us know where you are zooming in from today. And utilize the Q&A feature on this Zoom webinar. I will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. Mike Moe, my supervisor and the Director of Strategic Partnership and Tourism Development, is not on the webinar today, so I'll be doing dual duties as host and behind the scenes, making sure that the chat is working and taking care of any technical difficulties if they arise. Many of you have been on this webinar before or have been present at other tourism skill shops. So you know the purpose of these, that they have started last year, and this is our second year. They happen every month on the third or fourth Thursday of the month, and they focus on an issue or skill within the tourism sector. They help our tourism colleagues broaden their skills, knowledge, and network. And stay tuned for the April webinar, which will focus on retention strategies and recruitment of workforce folks in the tourism sector. Again, you can always find more information on the Tourism Skill Shop, this one and others, on the SWT industry website. You can find webinars, recordings of past skill shops on the SWT YouTube channel. And then stay tuned for updates on Skillshop and other news and events on the SWT Industry Update newsletter, on the SWT LinkedIn page as well, and also the SWT Facebook group. Okay, so let's talk about today's webinar. Focusing on advertising tactics for Facebook and Instagram. This webinar will provide marketers with tips and best practices for advertising on Facebook and Instagram. Businesses, DMOs, hotels, and other entities can utilize paid social advertisements to reach and engage targeted audiences, generate growth, and increase revenue. The webinar will examine these types of ads on Facebook and Instagram and how those ads align with campaign objectives. Webinar attendees will also learn how to budget for ads while navigating the targeting options within Ads Manager. Guest speakers today for this skill shop are Alec Wooden and Erica Lindemann. Alec is the Associate Director of Distribution and Partnerships at Sparkloft Media, an award-winning social-first creative agency headquartered in Portland, Oregon. So Alec, welcome. Thank you for being here today. And Erica represents Visit Vancouver, Washington, and she is the Director of Marketing there. So panelists, thanks again for being here. Alec, let's turn it over to you first.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thanks to Matt and everyone at State of Washington Tourism, and of course to Erica, who you'll be hearing from very shortly as well. As Matt said, I'm the Associate Director of Distribution and Partnerships, which is a long way to say paid media at Sparkloft Media, which is a social first creative agency headquartered in Portland, just down the road from some of you. I myself am checking in from our office in sunny Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm born and raised. So very excited to chat with everybody today. I'm going to go ahead and give a quick screen share. We'll be talking about some of my very favorite topics anyway. Can everybody see that screen? Can someone give me just a thumbs up in the chat or a verbal yes, just to make sure?
Yeah, it looks good, Alec.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I want to start, as I typically do when I talk about topics like this, with a couple of caveats. The first being that what we're going to talk about today, I love very much, but it's a big topic. There's a lot of nuance. We could probably have a 3-day web summit on advertising tactics for Facebook and Instagram and still not cover everything, which isn't meant to be daunting, but rather just to showcase the power of these platforms. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is boil those powers down into a few different buckets. The first is some sort of philosophical social buying philosophies that we use as they relate to these platforms. The second is more tactical. We'll get in the weeds of these platforms a little bit. I'm going to leave you with some takeaways and trends that we've seen and that we hope to see continue through this year. Second major caveat is that I think it's important to remember there's not a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to any advertising on social, especially Facebook and Instagram. So the ideas today are meant to be taken with a degree of relativity or subjectivity, but my hope is that in each of them, you'll find something that you can scale to fit your business, to fit your brand, to fit your destination. Within each idea or example, again, hopefully you can find something that piques your interest that will inevitably need to lead to you learning more about it, as we're certainly not going to be able to cover everything in depth today. But final caveat, my team at Sparkloft knows this. When I get going, the rambling train just rolls right off the track. So please feel free to just jump in, interrupt at any time if there's something that warrants a question, a clarification, or any other conversation. I love to keep these conversational for sure.
Yeah, Alec, that reminds me too, folks, you do have the option of putting your question in the chat or the Q&A. But if you have a few follow-up questions or a complicated question, I can always unmute you and you can speak to Alec directly. That's all. Thanks, Alec.
Absolutely. And I will do my best to keep an eye on both some notes that I have, the Q&A and the chat. But yeah, absolutely. Please do flag if there's something I'm missing. Let's get going. We're going to get going with a bit of a myth of a narrative over the last couple of years that Facebook ads are losing relevance. And when I say that, it seems like an odd way to start this conversation, right? But when I say that, there's been a lot of well-documented publicity around other platforms that have emerged, some shifting demographics and audiences across platforms, frankly, some PR hits that Facebook has taken. By the way, I'm going to use Meta and Facebook completely interchangeably with no real reason for one or the other. That's just old habits dying hard. Generally speaking, this narrative is wrong. This remains a very powerful, very relevant platform. But yes, it's gotten more challenging. Audiences are becoming more anonymous, costs are rising, that audience anonymity due to privacy regulations and technological tracking changes. And I think just the public's understanding at large of how they're being targeted, people are more apt to maybe turn off settings that would have once made them an advertising target. Now they're a little harder to find. So everything I'm going to say today is framed in this next really important point. For our purposes as advertisers and marketers, not as consumers ourselves, Facebook is not a social media today. For this chat, it's a social marketplace. And the basic laws of supply, demand, and competition are going to apply to that marketplace. And if I can get my screen to go, there we are. So why social advertising? Well, there's three things that we really focus on. And of course, when I'm saying social advertising in this setting, I mean Facebook and Instagram. The big benefits, the big powers of these platforms. It's fast. You can have the idea to start Facebook advertising at breakfast and it can be live by lunch. It's a short lead time from ideation to creation to being live. It's nimble. So any ad parameters, if that's budget, creative, targeting, those can be shifted with ease as you need. And it's measurable. Reality is it's 2023. Everything we are doing as advertisers should be measurable. It should be quantifiable. And the data we get from Facebook and Instagram remains really thorough and detailed. I'm going to move into the philosophical bucket, just some ways that we approach Facebook and Instagram buying as a whole. And these are four really important pillars to me. The first being that's an objective-based approach. Start by answering that basic question. What do you want to accomplish? What are your goals? If you give Facebook the right goals, it's going to help guide you towards the right solution for those. You can think of this as more often than not, though I do enjoy just wandering from time to time, more often than not, you don't hop in your car with no destination in mind. Let's treat advertising the same way for these purposes today. Audience first approach. Who is your audience? Who do you want to reach and how familiar are they already with your brand? Do you know where they are? Do you know where to meet them halfway? We're going to dive a lot deeper into all of these, of course, but the next one is follow the money. We talked a lot about rising costs. We've already talked a lot about audience anonymity. The social environment, advertising wise, is noisy. It's saturated. It's hard to pay to swim upstream. And by that, I mean to correct inefficient or poor results. Rather, what we tend to focus on is identifying what is working, what is efficient, and reinvesting, doubling down in that instead of trying to use money to correct inefficiencies. The last is trust the platform. I am the first person to admit that I'm not smarter than a machine. And as it says here, for all the PR hits that Meta has taken, and none of which I will opine on today, it remains a smart machine learning platform. It will optimize as much as you allow it to. going to do a couple quick vocabulary stops, just because you're going to hear me say a lot of these words today. So I want to make sure we all understand exactly what I mean when I say them. In platform terms, advertising terms, and human terms, we're going to talk about a campaign, which means an objective, which means in plain English, what do you want to accomplish? What's your goal? An ad set, it's the audience you're going to use, the placements you're going to use, the duration of the ad. So in human terms, to who, to where, and for how long is this ad going to be served? And the ad unit, the creative asset in the copy itself, or put simply, what does the ad look like? Don't worry, we are not going to go through every objective and every optimization that Facebook offers. I included this here to show that depth, to show the width of what is available to you. Honestly, for a lot of people's purposes, I would encourage you to use this chart backwards. Let's actually read right to left. We talked about an objective-based approach or a goal-based approach. If we're asking ourselves what it is we want to do, that's where we need to start. If I am flighting an ad campaign and I say, what I want to do at the end of the day, what's most important to me is to send people to a destination, to a website. Great. I know that my objective is traffic, and I have multiple ways in the platform in which to optimize that traffic, which we'll hit on a little bit more later. If I want to collect sales leads or get signups for a newsletter, we would definitely talk about this one a little bit later. My objective is leads, and I have multiple ways to optimize my advertising targets to get to that objective, so on and so forth. These change with some regularity, at least by name. The basic tenets of them have not necessarily changed over the years, but Facebook will often redistribute the way that they group together their objectives and certainly their optimizations. I think it's important to call out that you'll see some of the same optimizations appear in similar objectives, namely video views. We'll also hit on that a little bit more too. I think it's been pretty well documented how video as a creative asset has dominated, and I think will continue to do so in the social space. Lots of objectives, lots of optimizations to answer that basic question, our very first philosophy: what do you want? What are you trying to accomplish? And oh man, I used the big A word, algorithm. We could spend 6 or 8 hours on this slide alone. Don't worry, we won't. I'm going to leave you with a link that explains this slide in a little more detail that I'll myself drop in the chat later. But I want everybody to understand, if we go back to that idea of a marketplace, what we're doing on Facebook and Instagram advertising is fighting for audience attention that is finite once you put parameters on it. We're doing that in 3 specific ways. This is literally how Facebook determines if, when, how often, and to whom your ad gets shown. There are 3 major rankings that they use. There's quality ranking, which is your ad's perceived quality compared to ads competing for the same audience. And you're going to see that key phrase used 3 times here: competing for the same audience, competing for the same audience, competing for the same audience. It is a competition. It is supply and demand. Engagement ranking is the second. It's your ad's expected engagement rate. And this is where we have to put a little trust in the advertising platform we're using. This is their machine learning saying, okay, that ad, the ad for this DMO, when compared to this DMO who's targeting the same person, we expect this one's going to get more engagement. We'll talk about some considerations of how they make those quick calculations. The third is conversion rate ranking. So once again, it's your ad's expected conversion rate compared to ads with the same optimization running at the same audience, which of course, my little cheeky note down there, which means you have to have a goal that was optimized for in the first place. There's all sorts of considerations, and I'm going to wait to drop that link in the chat because I think you can get very lost in it. I know I do with great regularity. But what I want the big takeaway here to be is that each ad, each individual ad, each campaign we're doing is judged on these 3 bits of ranking to spit into the algorithm that's who it defines if your ad is shown over your competitors. And those are judged on a scale of above average, average, and below average. The grid I'm going to send to everybody lets you literally plug and play and say, okay, if my quality ranking is below average, this is my suggested optimization. Some of those are over there in the considerations column. Facebook obviously has some regulations about types of copy you can use. I think if you're doing ads for any political purpose or social cause, you have to indicate that. There are creative regulations on too much copy being overlaid or too much text being overlaid on an image. all sorts of things that would crunch any one of those rankings down to below average, which is going to affect the overall quality, which is going to affect how, where, how often, and to whom your ad gets seen. That probably sounded like a lot of gibberish. Once again, I'm going to leave you behind with a link and encourage you to study a little bit more on this topic. We can certainly converse more about it now as well. But I think there is an understanding needed about exactly what goes into how these ads are actually delivered to people. We are about to get in the weeds a little bit of some actual tips, tricks, best practices. You're probably thinking, wait, we're not in the weeds yet. No, we are just in like the ankle high stuff. Let's get up to the at least like knee high stuff of getting into some of the core tenets of what makes a good ad and a good campaign. The first of which is audiences. You can have the best creative in the world, an endless budget with which to promote it, but if you're not speaking to the right people, it really doesn't matter. Some targeting best practices as we go from high to low. A lot of people, this isn't incorrect at all, but a lot of people solely see Facebook and the output that it gives in advertising as one piece of the traditional marketing funnel. So awareness, interest, intent, action, and so on. And that's absolutely true. But I think what gets lost is that you can create your very own funnel just solely within this platform itself, by using a few different targeting best practices, a few different types of audiences. But the first best practice, start broad to feed that algorithm. We need to give your ads expected so-and-so as pieces of those rankings, as much audience information as possible. So those are the sort of traditional core audiences that you can use on Facebook, which is detailed up there in that screenshot in the right with not a lot of information put into it, but you can see all the parameters as far as location and age and languages and detailed targeting. That detailed targeting being things that people have self-identified on Facebook as this is something I'm interested in. This is something that I already like. And then, of course, if they give their location and their age, gender, and so on. So core audiences are from given demographics within the Facebook platform. We like to move into what's called lean-in audiences, so custom audiences. They're fed by the meta pixel. Here's another big word that we will hit on again. The pixel gathers all that data on your website or your app or your event or wherever you're directing your advertising traffic. But from that, we can create custom audiences. So these are people that have taken some sort of action from an ad already or from your page already. They visited a website. They have engaged with a post of yours, or maybe they've indicated that they're attending an event you may be throwing. We can create custom audiences based off of that. First party data, when you have it at your disposal, is pure gold, of course. This does not just relate to Facebook and Instagram, but absolutely it is helpful. We can upload things like customer mailing lists where it's applicable. These are people that we know are quite leaned in. They have already signed up for your newsletter, or maybe in a lot of cases, if you're in retail, they've purchased something from you before. There's rarely a better place to start than first person data who is a returning customer or someone who's already raised their hand and said, I'm interested in what you're selling. Lookalike audiences are your friend. I think from any of the above, we can create a lookalike audience to refresh the potential top of that Facebook funnel that we've created. If you don't know what a lookalike audience is, it's exactly how it sounds. We can use any of those above sources, so a core audience or a custom audience, to allow Facebook to say, or to say to Facebook, okay, please find me similar people to this in 1 or 2% proximity of the population in this country. And it will spit you back out a few million fresh people who look a lot like those who have already maybe gathered on your pixel or who have visited your website or who look like your mailing list already. And they do that, of course, just by matching the interest targeting that people have self-identified in Facebook. Lookalikes are extremely handy. They're extremely easy to use just by following the audiences tab in your business manager. A lot of fun to play around with. One thing I do want to point out on audiences, and we'll be able to stop for some examples here pretty soon. If you have multiple audiences, I think one of the most overlooked features on the Facebook platform is what's called the audience overlap tool. We want to make sure that we're not erroneously targeting the same people in two different ways. So that would be splitting the ad set, which is, again, your audience and your targeting. If we're not entirely sure if those audiences may be too similar, we can use this overlap tool to check. So you can see an output example there on the right side, where in this case, it's telling me very good news, just 1% of those two audiences. And those are just a couple samples that I've pulled from a redacted client there. Just 1% of those people overlap. Why is that important? Well, obviously we don't want to necessarily be paying twice to reach the same people. So avoiding audience overlap allows us to do this. A really good example, which I promise I will start moving into examples and not just talking at best practice points. We had a client who was segmenting same location, same interests, but splitting their ad sets to, in this case, look at two different languages. One was English, one was Spanish. We used the audience overlap tool to figure out that about 80% of the Spanish speaking audience also lived within that English speaking audience, meaning they were effectively paying twice to reach 8 out of 10 of the same consumers. So step one in fixing this problem was to actually combine that audience together, which then helped it grow, combining it meaning find me English and Spanish speakers with these interests. It helped it grow by about 20% and became a better baseline for their targeting. The second step of that fix is coming when we talk about actual ad creative itself. So check for audience overlap. It will save you money. It will create better efficiencies. Moving to the ad type and creative. Great ad campaigns require great ads to increase your relevance score. Some of you may be very familiar with the ads we're showing on the right. Those are some real examples from our friends at Travel Oregon. Those are out in the world, so you're not seeing anything proprietary there. I actually hope you're getting served some of them because I absolutely adore this creative. The point here being that a diversity of placements exists on Facebook and Instagram for a reason. Video remains a strong driver, but there is a place for good old-fashioned static images and link-driven content within your ad plans. If you're not familiar with dynamic ads, that's something that I definitely encourage you to look up a little bit more. Dynamic ads will allow you to combine similar assets that you may be splitting into, call it 5 or 6 ads. You can combine those into one, and again, allow this machine learning platform to determine which of these images you've loaded into the ad is going to be the best fit for this person. The real life example here is a retail client who wanted to show off a seasonal collection. The creative was fairly similar. They were all, in this case, ladies' dresses, I believe. So let's say there were 6 of those with similar content or similar copy relating to each content. They wanted to do 6 ads, but we didn't have quite the budget. So what we did was combine those into one ad, but use the dynamic feature where we said, here's 6 images, here's 6 pieces of copy. Based on who's going to view this ad, you tell us what's best to put together, Facebook. And it did, and it worked great. It got their cost efficiency way down. It made their money go a lot further. I can't speak enough about how much I love dynamic ads. I think they do work a lot if you're showing any sort of collection item. Again, the retail example there, but I think you can translate that into many DMO examples too. Show and tell for DMOs, we see a lot. Carousels still work great. Carousels have been around on Facebook, Instagram advertising for a long time, and I think get often overlooked. But think about the idea that we can show 3 or 4 or 5 facets of a brand, excuse me, or of a location within one ad unit here. If you think in the destination example, you want to show off museums, nightlife, restaurants, family activities, but we only want to pay for one ad. So we're going to put those all in different tiles of the same ad and use the carousel function. Again, been around for a while, often overlooked, but especially for destinations, I think they can be a really big lift and save you a little bit of money, or at least make your money more efficient in using less advertising units. Language variations, continuing on the example of that English and Spanish speaking audience. The second part of that fix, once we combined that audience of English and Spanish speakers together, was that we simply did a variation of the ad in each language, which you can do. You can make multiple versions of an ad, and it still counts as just one ad for spending's sake. And Facebook is going to optimize based on what that given user's preference is in the platform, which of those they get served. So taking that example to sort of complete it, we were able to take an inefficient ad set that had overlap, combine them together, but then use, in a way, dynamic advertising, in this case with multiple language variations, to most efficiently deliver those to the right people. We saw a noticeable drop in cost per a given result. I don't recall now if that was link clicks or an awareness campaign, but we did definitely see a lot there. The other thing I just want to point out is that creative does also mean the landing page. going back full circle, if we're talking about what's the goal, what do you want to accomplish, a lot of that matters with where you're sending them. Make sure your landing pages aren't overly complex. What action do you want them to take? Is that to view a video on your website, or is that to fill out a form? Matt, go ahead.
Hey, Alec, maybe now's a good time to talk about music features. So we have a question from Judy. With IG and Facebook posting in general, are businesses allowed to use music features in the business IG and Facebook accounts? Music features. Can you elaborate on that?
I think I can. I want to make sure I don't give wrong advice, and certainly make sure I'm not speaking in any legal advice as it comes to copyright.
Right.
Though I always say I should have gone to law school. So I don't know. Let's not take this as any legal advice though. As far as adding audio or music to any videos, absolutely, it's definitely encouraged. It's definitely catching, especially if there's an autoplay feature on those ads. What you do need to flag, and I'm happy to do some research on this, and maybe Matt can distribute after the fact, what any current fair use sort of copyright is there. Certainly if you use a very popular song, we see this happen a lot in organic posting, or in advertising. The record labels, for example, are going to shut that down pretty fast because they hold the copyright to it. So there are fair use libraries, there are stock libraries, where you can get royalty-free audio, royalty-free music, and that's the key phrase to really go for there. Which is probably better in the long run anyway. If you're not promoting X artist given concert, then you want to use something that's stock and upbeat and fun. But if we're talking about a DMO and showing off these pretty parts of your video, let's not distract it by a well-known song, frankly, unless I guess it's about that place. But I would steer you towards a number of royalty-free spots that are all very accessible out there. And just caution that, yes, your ad will get flagged if there's any copyright sort of infringement that the platform thinks about there.
Cool. And do you see Judy's follow-up, Alec?
I do. And Judy, I'm assuming the same. Though again, I'm happy to clarify that and make sure that I'm saying that right. But yes, I'm assuming the same, that anything they're suggesting add music is going to open a library that is royalty-free.
Excellent. And we have a question from Ryan Bush. Good example with the Spanish audience and language. And he asks, are you also translating landing pages for Spanish ads?
Absolutely. And Ryan, that's a great question, and one I blew right through in my notes because, like I said, that's something I tend to do. Yes, those ad examples we had shown on the previous page there, you saw an English and a Spanish ad. Each of those went to a translated landing page as well. So it speaks to that point of part of ad creative is making sure that your landing page itself is best optimized.
All right, Alec, thanks.
So moving on to placements, I promise I'm almost done rambling. Placements, of course, increase the visibility likelihood of your ad being seen by the right audience, regardless of their viewing preferences, which we can't really predict, which can vary widely within an audience, meaning are they going to see this in a Facebook feed versus an Instagram feed versus an Instagram reel or explore page, Facebook Messenger, Facebook Marketplace. There's a lot of placements, and there's a lot of placements for a reason. The more the merrier. It's hard to dictate how your audience uses these platforms. We don't want to try to dictate the way they use it. Frankly, we want to find them. We want to meet them halfway. So let's, again, meet them wherever they are. There is a feature called Advantage Plus Placements. With a proper spread of creative, I definitely encourage you to use this. Advantage Plus basically says, turn it all on. I don't care where the impressions are coming from. I just want to find these people. But the note there is pay attention to creative. You should have a quick scroll through and make sure that your creative is best suited to all those placements, meaning that a link article with a long caption is not going to show very well in an Instagram reel setting. So you may want to edit that to be a video. But if you have properly formatted spread of creative, the more the merrier as far as placements. Want to point out the audience network, which is included in Advantage Plus placements. A lot of people have mixed emotions on the audience network. In effect, what the audience network is an agreement between Facebook and other apps or publishers that allows you to publish ads on their sites using Facebook's targeting, Facebook and Instagram's targeting. For broader reach and awareness campaigns, have at it. I think you're very safe to use that feature. Some people shy away from it because it does tend to eat up a lot of impressions. But if you're finding the right people, for my money, I don't necessarily care if I'm finding them in feed in Facebook or in a partner app of Facebook's, so long as I'm finding the right person. And moving through to budget, because we have to ruin every good conversation by making this all about money, per day spends. And I'd love to leave budget last, because this is where I want to really focus on the idea of relativity and subjectivity. I'm going to say that we suggest a $35 per day per ad unit wherever possible, and not lower than $20 a day. If you're doing the fast math in your head over a month, you're saying, well, that's $1,000 for just one ad, and then multiply that by as many ads as you have, and maybe that doesn't fit your budget. So there are ways to get around shortening durations, for example, to increase a daily spend. All of this is about increasing that daily spend. So in that minute, in that hour, in that day, how can we best play within the marketplace that Facebook and Instagram advertising is to get your ads seen? A lot of that has to do with the daily spend itself. We see a lot of people who will, they'll try to put a $500 campaign across 3 months. If you do the quick math of, 500 divided by 90, you're not going to have a very aggressive daily spend, and you're just not going to get enough results for that ad to optimize, for that machine to learn. Let's use a $500 example when I talk about the flight duration. Let's say that's your budget. We know that's what you have. Over a 30-day span, I'm not a mathematician, but that's $16 and change in that $500 budget if you distribute it evenly. You can consider something like shortening a flight duration over 20 days. Now we're talking $25 a day, and we've gotten quite a bit stronger proportionally there. The same idea, don't split up similar ad sets. So we can increase a daily spend by not unnecessarily splitting Facebook and Instagram, which some people do at the ad set level. They'll say, I want to spend 250 of my 500 on Facebook and 250 on Instagram, without much of a reason to need to do that. We're targeting the same people wherever they're going to find this advertising. So let's put all the money into one ad set, optimized at the campaign level, and allow the machine to do the work to get a little bit smarter and find the right people, really regardless of where they are. And the last, my favorite, for the love of data, I love all things data. These are some takeaways that we won't dive deep on, but of course you'll have this to be able to reference later. Don't just focus on the big numbers. It's great that we drove 38,000 link clicks or 3 million impressions, but back to that idea of efficiency and doubling down on what's working. What was your cost per a given metric? How much did it cost to do that on one link click or 1,000 impressions? Benchmarks are important, and they are available to you. They're not one size fits all. So I can't necessarily tell you what yours should be, but I would encourage you to go research what they should be if you're in the travel vertical, or if you're in retail and then a given type of retail. You can find out what your cost per click and your CPM and your cost per an engagement should probably be, and give a good idea of how your campaigns are actually working. The last is to take advantage of the speed of this data. Like we said, it's fast. This comes at you relatively instantaneous. It is real time. I'm not suggesting you should make edits to your ads daily. As a matter of fact, I'm suggesting you absolutely don't do that, because that will restart that machine learning a little bit. But remember how nimble this platform can be. Keep an eye on your data and use that real-time feedback to your advantage. And the last, which I'll also follow up on materials, if you don't have a Facebook pixel set up, using Facebook support, if you know nothing about that, I promise it is not as scary as it seems. But from a data perspective, it really is everything. It's what's going to give you all this accurate data. I know I've rambled on for quite a while. I'm going to hit some 2023 trends, and then I will get out of Erica's hair. Considerations for 2023, a lot of these things we've already said. A/B testing is going to remain more important than ever. It's a crowded marketplace. Those audiences are becoming anonymous. If we're not sure what works, let's let the platform actually show us in an A/B scenario. Those are very easy to set up when you're creating an ad campaign. You can put in, for example, 2 pieces of creative or 2 audiences, and let Facebook test them against each other. After a few days, it determines a winner and funnels the rest of your budget there. Don't sleep on A/B testing. Again, been around for a while, but is often overlooked. The video wars are certainly going to continue. short form and reusable content. So reusable meaning something that works on TikTok, they're also going to want to use on Facebook. That 6 to 15 second sweet spot, depending on your placement. Push to stay on platform is one that, especially for DMOs, if you're not using this, I think is definitely getting missed. The opportunity exists to accomplish a lot of goals on the platform itself. I'm going to use a lead generation example. We've had a lot of clients move from, for example, using a traffic ad to send people to their website to then sign up for a newsletter. Well, you can use an instant form directly on Facebook to sign up for the same newsletter. Now we're capturing willingly given first-party data at a much cheaper cost, something that would cost us 50, 60, 70 cents to get someone to a website where they might sign up. We're seeing it more like 20 cents for something that we know they signed up. And now you have an actual lead, your database is growing, and you've created a real connection with that first-party data. Follow the money I already talked about. And the last one, however you prefer to do it, keep up, because this changes a lot. So you have to be willing to put in some work to keep up with a lot of platform changes. If we gave this talk again in 3 months, maybe even 3 weeks, a lot of these things may change. Facebook and Instagram don't hide their information. Their resources are readily available to find in their business support center. I would encourage you to look there, or there are numerous podcasts, newsletters, or other sources that you trust. But however you prefer, keep up, because it does change often, and following those changes is going to help you place the most efficient media. So thank you very much. Happy hunting to all of you. Please do stay in touch. I hope there'll be obviously some Q&A and conversation here, but I want to get out of the way and hear from Erica as well.
Thanks, Alec. Well done. And Sean, we see your question in the Q&A feature. I'll probably let Alec respond to you so we can have plenty of time for Erica. Erica, how about you? Why don't you help us take everything that Alec mentioned and apply it to the tourism sector, in your case, a DMO?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. I'm Erica Lindemann. I'm with Visit Vancouver, Washington. And yeah, I would definitely not call myself an expert by any means, but that's why we have Alec here. And I'm hoping that maybe I can just share a couple more like on the 101 level tips for people to kind of implement right away. Can you see my screen, Matthew?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Let's see. There we go. So first, what we want to do is instead of boosting a post, we really want to use Ads Manager for this. This will allow us to track all of those promotions in one spot. You can gain a lot of insights provided through that platform. And this is why you want to have an Instagram business account for that same reason. That actually kind of goes along with the question. I don't know if we want to hit on that right now.
Sure.
Okay, so we do use Business Suite to access our Ads Manager. What you want to do is you want to add whoever is doing daily postings and advertising, add them as an admin for your business account, and then they can go in and use Ads Manager to kind of get those started. My next tip is just to be consistent. So if you're spending money regularly, it's the best way to get significant return on your efforts. Share high quality optimized posts, ideally leading back to your website or helping you accomplish some sort of goal. Alec kind of harped on this a lot too, and I'm going to as well. Each ad or each post needs to have a purpose. So use directional language to achieve that goal. So if your goal is to get people back to your website, click the link, as part of your post to get people to really take that direction of and achieving that goal. We want to include links in our posts to garner a high click-through rate and overall engagement and lead people to your website. Also with link posts, you're going to have more visibility for clickable area when you're using those preview links. And so you want to make sure all the metadata is also queued up first, as if it's going to pull that preview. And then I think Alec mentioned this as well, have those landing pages really optimized for easy to use and go back to your goal always. So you want to have those landing pages, if it's signing up for a newsletter or that kind of thing, easy to follow and really visually appealing. Go back to the basics. So don't assume your followers know anything, especially when you're trying to reach new audiences. I think as DMOs, it's kind of easy for us to get in the weeds of daily postings. When you put an ad out there and it's to maybe a larger audience in a different state that might not know who you are, as Vancouver, we all often get confused with Vancouver, Canada. So we really have to go back to the basics of like, we're in Washington, that kind of thing. So if you have a wider audience, you need to go back to we're in Washington state, or, going back to the basics, and just don't assume that your audience that you're trying to target know about you and what you're trying to portray. Push that evergreen content. It's going to, like I said before, it's going to be different than your daily postings. So you're not just trying to focus on one event, or you're not trying to focus on one attraction or aspect of your destination. Push that evergreen content that doesn't change a lot, and try to kind of go back to the basics in that sense as well. Alec, I'm so glad he covered the custom audiences and lookalike audiences. You want to use those. It can get confusing, but do your best. And Facebook really does try to walk you through that. So we try to do that as well. You're reaching new people with similar characteristics. And so you don't need to add a lot of the interests in there. Just they'll do the work for you. I did want to go and offer some video tips, because the platforms are getting so video heavy with algorithms. You really have to post videos now to stand out. And some tips that we've tried to follow that have been given to us. Add your logo at the beginning of your video. You want your branding to really stick out in that first part of your video. If nothing happens in the first 5 seconds of your video, you'll lose people right away. So you want your branding there and something to happen. I think some of our destination videos are, scenic shots and all of that in the first 10 seconds. You really want to cut that down when you're doing Facebook and Instagram ads. And I've been told this stat that 85% of Facebook videos are watched without sound. So it's important you have the captions correct, really look at, the spelling and all of that. And the text on the screen that tells people what's happening and where it's happening. It might even lead people to turn on that audio, but you want to kind of assume that they're not watching with the audio. And then I think I kind of already said this, but overall, you want your daily and weekly post strategy to be different than your ad strategy. I am lucky, even though we're a small team of 3 for our marketing team, we have one person that does our daily postings on Instagram and Facebook, and then I get to just focus on the ads. If you you have different goals for each kind of cadence of that posting. And so I get to kind of step back and say, okay, we have a monthly budget that we're trying to hit for Facebook and Instagram ads. So how are we going to hit that? What kind of posts are we going to do? Instead of just boosting posts that might already be organically doing well, or are a little bit more specific, I get to step back and kind of broadly say, what kind of goal do we want to accomplish this month with our budget? So if that's driving to a blog post about a flower power tour in the spring, that might be focused on leisure travelers that don't know about our flower gardens in Vancouver or something. That's going to be a different goal than, say, when we do Facebook ads for our dining month in October, Dine the Coop. That's going to be a more narrow audience, really focusing on our local and across the river in Portland audience. And it's going to look a lot different than trying to drive clicks to our blog post or something like that. We also did a full rebrand last year in January. And so we had some pretty large budget to put ads out there with destination type brand awareness videos. So really our goal was just to get our brand out there and to have a pretty broad reach, hitting places that we know are a little farther out, but that we do have some interest, say Salt Lake City, Vancouver, BC, and things of that nature, like those cities that are farther out that might not be the best audience to say, hey, we have a arts festival coming up next weekend. They're not going to just book a plane ticket right there, but really just to for them to get to know our brand. So all three of those examples they just have a very different goal in mind. And so I get to step back and kind of create those goals on a monthly basis and try to stay consistent with that. That is very different than our communications manager does on a daily basis for posting on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, that's all I have.
Excellent. Thanks, Erica. Well, that was short and sweet, and we have a few minutes for Q&A. Awesome. And I think we can give one or a question to you, Erica. It has to do with videos. For videos, are voiceovers worth the effort if most people listen without sound or music?
We don't do a lot of voiceovers. We do captions on every ad that we put out with videos. Yeah, we don't do voiceovers a lot. I would say I think captions are more efficient and effective.
Excellent. And with all of this information today, thanks again, Alec and Erica. And I've always kind of struggled with this too. It always seems like there's a new privacy law or changes with the platforms. We have a question from one of our audience members. What sources, what should folks follow to keep up with all the changing regulations or the changes in these platforms? Is there a publication or a website that tracks all of this stuff?
Yeah, and sort of that's a great question. I just dropped a few examples in there and just a written answer for you. It sounds overly simplistic, but the best place to start can just be the Meta Business Help Center. But that's more often where you're going to find a detailed answer to a problem you already know. There are dozens on dozens, hundreds on hundreds of podcasts and newsletters. I mentioned a few that I like there: the Mention Memo, Geek Out, Social Media Today, or the Daily Carnage. I'm betting if you were to Google any 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those, you'll find 8 others that are like them. My suggestion would be to just sign up for more than you need for a few weeks, figure out which ones you like, which ones are speaking to you, because they're all a little bit different. Those don't all just cover social or just Facebook, Instagram. It's going to touch on Google Ads and YouTube and SEO and all sorts of more holistic marketing, which I'm guessing a lot of you want anyway. So those are some. There are many more like it.
Uh-oh, we have something from Matthew that can't see the links referenced. Well, don't worry, Matthew. I'm sure we'll get I can send those to you in the follow-up email with the link to this recording and Alec's PowerPoint slides. Oh, I see we have another question that came in, but maybe before that, I kind of want to, since we're on the topic of Instagram and Facebook, and Alec, you mentioned TikTok. Maybe I'm sure other folks have this question though too, but how do you balance your marketing spend with Meta and TikTok? Do you go after a set of audience in TikTok, which is probably skews younger, as opposed to Instagram and Facebook? I mean, and the prices between the two entities, I mean, is one cheaper than the other? TikTok's been in the news recently. It might be bought out by a US company, or there might be more restrictions on TikTok. Why don't you address that elephant in the room now?
Oh boy. Yeah, look, and it's one that we deal with on a daily basis. Everything we've mentioned today has been fairly specific to Facebook and Instagram, but you can apply those same topics to numerous other platforms. TikTok, of course, being the hot button one right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're spending a lot of time on it as far as recommendations. We are pushing a lot of clients towards it. I believe it has great value. It is a slightly younger audience, though it's not overly young. And I think the more important thing is that I think it's Google actually, one of their higher ups said in a talk, like they were starting to lose the actual battle for discovery to TikTok, meaning people are going to TikTok to look for a place to eat in Vancouver instead of Google. So it's a discovery platform. Facebook and Instagram do as well. But generally speaking, it can be cheaper, though I want to put the caveat on that we have to remember to go all the way back to the beginning and say, what are you trying to accomplish? It can be cheaper for video views. TikTok can be similar costs as far as traffic, though it may not be the right quality traffic you want. It really depends on what it is you're pushing and who you want to talk to. But we absolutely believe in in a scattershot spend spread across a lot of platforms. But again, that really depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. I wouldn't shy away from it. I know it's in the news a lot right now. We will see what happens. But it's here today. I think it will be here tomorrow. I'm not going to make any too bold predictions on it, but it is an effective platform right now.
Cool. Erica, do you advertise on TikTok as well?
We do not.
Oh.
I will say that we definitely, it's a younger audience for us as well. And we, like for instance, for the coup of our dining month in October, I think it's a good space to kind of partner with influencers and content creators. So we had foodies from Portland post for us on TikTok. We have a different strategy on TikTok for sure.
That's an
and
awesome.
I know also DMOs are struggling with, if they are part of a city government, that they might not be able to post on TikTok. We are not part of the city government, so I know that's a thing too. So yeah.
Those are both great points. Using the influencer strategy as it relates to TikTok, some people are finding as or more valuable over just the self-controlled ads manager scenario.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we're having a few more questions come in the Q&A. Panelists, your choice. We have one from Kelsey and Lars. Load times, or a question about unboosted posts. Which ones do you want to tackle?
I can tackle the unboosted posts if you want to take the load time one, Alec.
I will do my best. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, for Instagram, we do have a link in bio, and that is how we try to get clicks to our website. I think it actually works decently well. We have also been told that you could put a link in bio, actually landing page on your website. We haven't tried it out yet, but we're thinking about it. So it's kind of the same, in the same sense. It's just like having one link that will take you to this landing page, and that will kind of disseminate the clicks around your website. So it's kind of two different strategies, but right now, yes, we are using a link in bio, and it does seem to work pretty well.
And Alec, what about you?
If I'm looking at load times and user experience, okay. Let me make sure I get this right, Lars, because this seems like a very good question. I want to make sure that I answer it as best I can, or if not, include some sort of follow-up documentation, which there was a question a moment ago about not being able to see links, and absolutely, I'm going to add some helpful links to the end of my presentation that I know will be sent around as well, so you can click to actually some of this stuff. Load times and user experience, core Web Vitals is hugely important for search marketing, right? When I look at several of local travel and tourism sites, load times are relatively slow. Yes, so it's a great question. I'm sorry, it took me until the end to really get there. It is important, and it has a lot to do with the quality of traffic. We just hit on the idea that TikTok, for example, is driving similar cost per given traffic costs, but we think that there's a little bit of a slower page load there, which is turning off a little bit of a younger audience. That's why we're not seeing all the time as quality of traffic. A way to ensure you're getting bang for your buck as it relates to Facebook and Instagram, optimize in that traffic scenario back in one of those grids that had all the objectives, optimize for landing page views over link clicks. So a link click is counting exactly that. It's just someone who clicked on your ad but may not have waited for the page to load. If you optimize for a landing page view, it is going to send that to people who are more likely to wait. And I say wait in a nanosecond scenario here, right? That's how impatient we've gotten in social advertising. That's part of the marketplace. They're going to wait for that page to fully load, and they're going to be more valuable traffic, albeit a few cents more expensive, yes. But I think by and large, we're all willing to pay a few cents more for a piece of valuable web traffic than we are a few cents less just for a vanity number of clicks.
Thank you, Alec. And I hope that answers your question, Lars. Any other questions, comments from our audience in the last few minutes of the webinar today? Any questions, Erica, that you'd like to ask Alec, or Alec, Erica?
I don't think so. I did see Sora's comment about captions can be voiceover in the TikTok, the kind of robot-y voice. We've been actually called out a couple of times by, commenters about using the robot voice. So I'm really curious about that trend and to see if it might be kind of going away or not. But yeah, some of our followers don't like the robot voice, but I know it is very trendy.
Sure.
Oh, we have one more from Lars. In search, the cost to acquire a visitor goes way up if the user experience quality score is low. Is that the same? Is that applicable to social?
Yeah, it's probably not as drastic a rise, but it's definitely applicable. Back on that, when we were talking about the quality ranking, engagement ranking, conversion rate ranking, if your ads are continually scored below average, and one of the reasons they may be is a slow load time or a poorly optimized landing page, absolutely, it's going to get shown less and it's going to cost more every time it does. So it's a very similar effect. I think probably not as drastic because you're probably serving a few less impressions overall. But yes, that's a really good point, Lars. It does have a similar effect here.
Okay, folks, and we are just at the hour. So excellent. Great webinar today. Erica and Alec, thanks again. Your contact information, your email address will be in my follow-up email to all the registrants for this webinar. So they may contact you with additional questions. So I hope you get to entertain those as well. So there'll be a link to this recording as well as Alec's PowerPoints and maybe a few links that he's mentioned today as well. Thanks again, everyone. Stay tuned for the next Tourism Skill Shop on the 27th of April, when we will be talking about recruitment and retention strategies in the tourism sector to attract that workforce going into peak season.